Hi everyone, it's Laquita. I hope you all are doing well. I decided to do a tutorial on how to make this bag because I had someone who left a comment and asked me if there was a tutorial for it. And I don't usually do tutorials because it takes me so long. I'm a bit of a slow crafter, so that's why I usually don't do tutorials. But I decided that this one was one I think I can handle, so I'm going to make an attempt to show you how I did this bag. So if you didn't see the video for this bag, I'll leave a link in the description box below so you can go back and take a look at that video. So if you remember, if you saw that video, you remember that I made that bag using one of these canvas clutches, little pouches like this that I picked up at Joann's. And this one is a little bit too small. It's exactly like this one that I used in that purse, but this one I used in that purse I used the size that's a little bit larger than this. So because this one I felt was too small, I already had this one in my stash too, and this one is made exactly the same. It's just that it's covered in a lace instead of being made out of canvas. This one is made out of a muslin and then it's covered with a lace. So just so that you know, this is what I'm starting with, and if you're wondering why it doesn't look like the one that's in that bag, that's the reason, is I already had this one in my stash in there. And this one measures 8 by 5, so it's an 8 inches this way and 5 inches this way. And then the first doily that I'm going to use to put on here is a 16-inch doily. So just, you know, if you're wanting to have some measurements about the sizes of what I use to get started, that's pretty much the base, the two things that you'll need for your base for sure. So I'm going to do this tutorial in segments. So you'll probably see a lot of, I don't know what you call it. It's like, you know, when you splice your videos together, you'll see the transition from one to the other. So, but I just wanted to show you the base portion, and then I'll get into making it. So I'll be right back. So the strap that I put on this purse is just, you know, it's a very pretty trim that I used. Well, I decided to do something different for this bag. I decided to use, this is a crocheted cotton trim, and then I've also got a little beaded trim that I'm going to use on top of it. And I'm going to put those two together, and that's going to create the strap for this bag. And I have already cut a yard. I think that's plenty long enough to make the strap. So, you know, it will get attached to the sides. So you'll attach it here on this end and then over on this end. And I will stitch it on to the ends, but I'm also going to add a bit of glue to, just for extra support to make sure it stays on there. Now, if you decide to do yours the same way and you use two different trims like I'm going to do here, you could glue the two together. I'm going to stitch these together by hand because that's just what I want to do, but you certainly don't have to do that. But I'm just going to put one on top of the other. So let me get started putting that on, and I'm going to do this in a you know, speed it up. So I think there's a way for you to slow the film down if you need to, but I will speed it up so that you don't have to watch me stitch those things together. So I'm just going to get a needle out and put some thread in it and get started doing that, okay? Okay, I have already attached one side. I stitched it on to the purse, and let me stick that needle in there so I don't lose it. I finished putting the strap together, the two trims together, and then I went ahead and stitched it to this side of the purse. And now I just need to stitch it to the other end. So when you do that, you don't have to stitch that on. You can actually glue it on if you'd rather do that. And you're probably wondering, why in the world am I doing all this sewing? And it's because sewing to me is relaxing. It's therapeutic for me, so I don't mind it at all. It's just very calming for me. I don't have a radio going. I don't have a television going. I'm just in my own thoughts when I'm sewing. So if I'm doing stuff like this, I don't really like to have noise in the room. So when you add your strap to the other side, make sure you've got it straight and it's not twisted. The last thing you want is to put it on and have to rip it off because it's twisted. So I've got mine exactly where it needs to go, and again, I'm just going to take my needle and thread, which I've already got it threaded, and just start to stitch it on. Move it up. This is all going to be hidden anyway over here on the end where you're attaching this, so it doesn't look like it doesn't look very pretty right now, but you're going to cover it all up with laces and trims, and so, but as I said, you can certainly glue it on if you don't want to go through stitching. So let me just finish this, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, everybody, let's see. Now I think what we'll put on is the little trim that I'm going to use to go just around the top of the bag, and I have one picked out here. I went ahead and picked out all of the laces and trims that I was planning to use for this project, and I kind of have them all piled over here. But as I mentioned before, you know, I'm such a slow crafter. If I would do that as we were going along, this video would never get finished. So I've kind of stepped ahead and picked some things out. So hopefully it will all work out and it will look like a really nice bag when we're all finished. So what I'm going to do, oops, I got it upside down. What I want to do is just take this little tiny little ruffled lace trim, and I'm going to put it just right along the edge, the top edge, and go all the way around the bag. And it's just because I want to kind of hide that zipper a little bit. I just don't want the zipper showing that much. I decided to do, you know, on this bag, the original one, I had this flap. I don't want to do that on the next one. I'm not going to have a flap on it. So the only difference, I'm sorry, I keep going back and forth, is as you can see with this one, it is a Battenberg piece, and I just glued it to the back and, you know, just let the other part fall over to the front. I mean, that's how easy it was to make the flap, so it's real simple to do. So my glue of choice is Fabri-Tac, and so I'm going to use that, and we're just going to put this little dainty trim all around the top edge there. And Fabri-Tac is nice, I like it, but it can be really messy. If you have nail polish on, it will just completely wreck your nails. Then I picked out this lace, and this one has a really pretty edge to it. It's a cotton embroidery work on tulle, and then I'm just going to lay this right on top so that the flowers are kind of right up, you know, right up there next to that little lace that we put on there first. So let me glue those down. Um, these boards that I have my laces wrapped on, it's nothing but poster board, and I just decided one day that I was tired of making these cards that I was keeping my laces on, and a little piece that I'm going to put back on there. It just takes a little while to make these cards to keep your laces on. Plus, you know, when your laces are larger like this, you know, you can just imagine the size I'd have to make if I were making these things separately. And so, because this is made out of chipboard, and then, you know, you put a decorative paper on each side, and the edges are sealed with Mod Podge, and it's just a lot of work into making these cards. They're nice, and I have a lot of them made, but after a while, I just got tired of making them, and so what I did is I just went to the craft store and I bought some poster board, and it's about 1/4 of an inch thick, and it's easy to cut with your X-Acto blades, you know, like the box cutters, and just cut them into whatever size and shape that you need. And I keep these, you know, I know they're not very attractive, but they're just for keeping my laces in the drawer. So it's a way to keep them nice and neat. And okay, next step is going to be our first doily. And this doily that I'm using is, it's a very pretty one. I hate to cut them, and I know a lot of you don't like to see all this hard work, you know, get cut up too. I mean, I crochet too, and it's hard to cut it up once I've made it, but what else am I going to do with it? Turn it into something pretty, that's what I say. So I'm only going to use half on the front and half on the back. This doily measures 16 inches, I believe is what yeah, it's right at 17 inches from tip to tip across that way. And what I do with how I get my doilies is a lot of them I buy on, not on, it's actually at the thrift stores, or either a antique shop or something like that. You know, wherever I run across doilies, and if they're a decent price, then I can buy them. I want to show you real quick this basket I have here. It's like a chicken wire basket full of doilies, and completely to the top. I love this basket, and it sits on my floor in my craft room. So whenever I need doilies, you know, a large doily, it's in here, and so I can easily grab my doilies from that basket. I've been collecting those doilies for quite a while, so it's not like I found them all in 1 or 2 trips. It's been a few years at collecting doilies. So on this doily here, I'm going to cut, let me make sure I've got the center here. So all I did was just put all of the little pineapple edges together, and then you'll see the center of your doily, and so you'll know you're at the center there. And so I'm just going to cut, let's see, it's between, I moved it here, let's get it back in place. It's really not a straight shot to get across there, so just go for it. So if you don't like doing this, you might want to look away. Did I get that right? Let me just double check before I finish cutting that. Make sure I got the right spot. Yep, right there. Okay, so this one, and this is the right side, this is the right side. Okay, so I'm going to place this, I'm going to place it down just a little bit. Next, I have, this is a, fingers are sticky. This is a trim that I got from a lady's top when I was out thrifting. It's a very pretty lace. Almost has these, it has the same type of a scalloped edge on it as the doily that I just used. So I just cut it off the top. This was like on the front or the back panel, I'm not sure, but it's this piece, let me measure it for you so you have an idea how long it is. And actually it's got an edge here, that's where the seam was at. I'm going to cut that off too. So we've got about 19 inches or so. So if you want to add another lace on there, what I'm working with is about 19 inches. But I'm going to move this one a little bit lower than the first one I put on because of where the scallops fall. But I'm also going to gather this because you could do it, you know, with your glue and just bunch it up and put it on there. But you know, I don't work like that, so it's just not me. So I'm going to gather that by hand with the running stitch, and then we'll put it on there. So okay, I think that looks great. All right, now for the next layer, I have this is like a yoke, like a collar piece, and which is the right side? I think this is the right side. It's also too long, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to gather it and then I'll place it so that, you know, I have it exactly where I want it as far as the spacing from the second lace to put on the third one. So let me gather that, and then we'll move on. Okay, now we have on the third layer, okay, and they're all different, even though they all do have a little bit of a scalloped edge to them, but they're all different. Okay, now I think for the next layer, I think I'm going to do, this is a lace that I got from Neary, both of these. Actually, one is a little bit darker than the other. I don't know if you can tell, this is a white and this is an off-white over here. So I'm going to use this off-white so that I can just have a little bit of darker color in there. And I'm not going to use very much of this. As you can see, it's scalloped. Just not showing up very well. I'm sorry, I don't have anything here to put behind it to show you. Here I have my iPad cover. That way you can see it better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, this has been cut, you know, at an angle. I don't like that, so I'm going to straighten that edge up as much as I can, and then I'll cut it right down there. So I'll just have 2 scallops, and that's all I'm going to put across there. So if I lay that on there and look at it, it's actually perfect just to have 2 scallops. So I know you're not going to be able to see it very well, but I think with cutting it right there and then cutting it right there, I think is just the right amount. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue at the top, and just to hold that in place and to hold this one in place here. Then I'll come back and probably do a little running stitch. No, you can't see what I'm doing. I'll come back and do a little running stitch just through there and through there, just to tighten that up so that it'll lay a little bit flatter. So the reason I didn't want to glue it all down yet is because of what I'm going to add underneath. The top of that bottle always gets really ugly. Okay, so now what I'll do is put, I found this lady's hanky at while I was out thrifting, and it's damaged a little bit, but that doesn't matter at all. It's just a gorgeous hanky, and it's so delicate and so light, and so I'm going to use that. I'm just going to kind of grab it at the top like that, and I'm going to tuck it right under here, so it will lay like that. So you'll have that pretty hanky in there. And then on the other side, I have a different lace that I pulled out, and this one is it's a white lace, you know, it's on a tulle lace. I'm going to gather some of it, and that lace will go on the other side like that. So you're kind of get that kind of a look going on there. It's kind of hard to see. So we'll have a different lace on that side, and we'll have a lady's hanky on this side. Okay, so that's what we'll work on next. First thing I want to do though is I want to press this and get these fold lines out of here. So let me take care of that, and then I'm also going to cut this lace. I'll figure out how much I need, cut it, and do a little running stitch at the top and tuck that under there. So I'll be back in just a second. Okay, I have cut the lace that I'm going to use to put here. So this lace that I showed earlier that I was going to put on one side, I have already cut it and did a little running stitch through it, just gathered it up across the top there. And before I gathered it, I measured it. It's about 13 inches. So I'm just going to move that up and out of the way, and then I'm going to place this right along in there like that, like so. So it's the next layer on top of this collar piece that we have. And then the hanky, I ironed it, and I've just got it folded, I think, the way I want it to hang. And if I place it right here, about right there, I think is where I would want it. So that's the look that we will have. You can see the tip of the hanky is sticking up there, so I think what I'm going to do is just fold the tip of this down and then tack it with a little bit of thread, and that way I don't have to cut it. I could always cut that off, but why ruin the hanky and when it's not really necessary? So where's my thread? There we go. So I'm just gonna tack it down really quick and then put that in place, and we'll be ready to go on to the final. And I say I'm not ruining the hanky, and then I put glue all over it. But hopefully the glue won't ruin it. Okay, so that's what we've got now. And okay, now the next thing I'm going to put on is, you're gonna love this piece. This is a stunning piece of applique that I got from Neary. And let me get my iPad cover out again because it's so pretty. You don't want to miss this. I mean, just look at it. It's just has so much bling, so much sparkle to it. You can just see it, just like diamonds. And it actually had another part to it that I cut off. So this part right here, this pretty little piece, actually was right there, right at the top, like that. And I didn't need that part, so I cut it off, but we'll use this on the back of the bag. So I'm going to put this piece on the front. So what I'm thinking is we will put it right in the center, right at the top there. And we don't have to glue it down very much, just right at the top. It's okay, I think, if it's loose. It's not going anywhere. We might glue it maybe a little bit right here and over on this other side, but for the most part I think it can just you can just hang there. I think it'll be really pretty. So let's put that on. Let's make sure I've got it on straight. I think it's turning out really pretty. Okay, the next thing I want to add is I have these little tiny appliques that have flowers on them, and so I think I'm going to put those on, and I'm going to put them one on each side right in there, and that will cover that little gap. That will cover that little area right there where you see the hanky peeking out. And so what do you think of that? I like it, so we're going to go with that. So I think unless I decide to add a larger flower right here or something, I would say that the front of this bag is pretty much done. I may decide to add something else to it later, but for now, that's kind of where I'm going to stop with the front. Okay, so now let's finish up the back. And again, we will put the doily. This is the half of doily that we had left over from the front. So I'll try to match it up the best I can as far as the length. Can't see it, I'm sorry. The length here at the bottom, I'll try to keep it in that area and center it so that it's on the bag. So it may make the scallops off center, which is actually a good thing. At least a little bit there. So I think it will go right there. And then I have, excuse me, this is another doily, just has a cotton center and a gathered lace going around the outside. I'm going to leave it that way. I'm not going to cut it in half. And I'm going to place that on there next, like so. And then the last piece to go on is going to be this piece, which is another pineapple doily. And I'm going to fold it in half. But you see how they hang there? So I don't want the pineapples right on top of each other. So I'm going to make sure that they are offset, like kind of like that. And then that will go on there. So I think what I'll do though is cut it in half. That way I can control it a little bit better where I put it. So let's cut that piece in half. Okay, so maybe we'll do one like, maybe we'll do one, instead of doing it straight across like that, maybe we'll angle it over to the side a little bit like that. And then we can do the other one and angle it over to the side like that. So we end up with, you know, the peaks not laying on top of each other. They're staggered a bit, like so. And then for the final piece, as I mentioned, this pretty little piece, I think if we cut it right down the center, but don't cut it all the way apart. I don't know why I grabbed those scissors. They don't cut the fabric very well. Don't want to cut the sequins. Okay. I think we can lay it right across the top just like that. And finish it off like that. Think that'll be pretty for the back? Okay, so let's go to work and put everything down. I didn't put this little piece on there yet, so I do need to put that on, and that will only take us a minute to do. It's really pretty. And I will probably put, because you can see the cut doily right there, so I'll probably put something right here in the center of it. Maybe we'll do, maybe I'll do a big button or something right there, but that's something I can always add later. And next thing I'm going to work on is the zipper pull, because I don't really care for the zipper pull like that. So I think I'm going to, I have two tiny little doilies, and I'm going to put them one on each side and sandwich, you know, the zipper pull in between them like that. And then I've got some beads over here on my bead tray that I'm going to put together and create a little, you know, a little bead dangle, kind of like, you know, one of these to put on there. So let's do that. Okay, it's kind of hard to see it, but there it is there. And let me attach these beads to it next. Okay, what I've got here is some beading thread. And a beading needle. They're teeny, teeny, tiny, long and very sharp. So you have to be, if you're using these, if you've used them before, you know to be really careful with them, because they can really stab you and puncture you pretty good. So you just have to be really careful with them. So let's see, I'm gonna need a little stopper bead. A whole case here, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I have a whole case of beads here. Oh, let's see, how shall I put them together? The order of the beads that I want to put them in, I think in this order. That, so this goes on first. I tied the beads onto the end of the zipper pull there, and then I will just close the ends together, and that will keep the bead right in the middle. And then for the back, I think I'm going to put this button right here in the center of the bag to finish that off. So let me just put that on. These are some buttons that I got from Donna Little, one of her sales a while ago. I think they're really pretty buttons. And I think that's the perfect spot for it right there. Almost looks like this could be the front of the bag, doesn't it? So the last thing to do on this bag, it's actually finished now, so it's completely done, except for the, I can't decide whether I want to put something here in between these two little appliques. So I pulled out some flowers, and you tell me what you think, if you think I should put those on there. So does it look good with them or without? So you tell me. So that's it. That is it. The bag is complete. I hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial. I hope I wasn't too boring. I know it's pretty simple. So I just hope that, I'm sorry, you probably couldn't see it. Could probably raise that just a little bit there so you can get a better view of the bag. And there's the back. So this is the other one. So they're made exactly the same, but of course, you know, the look, I guess I could hold it better than that. There we go. Kind of hard to hold them both, but totally different bags, but made exactly the same way. So I hope that helped. I hope the tutorial was helpful to you if you were interested in making one of these bags. And so thank you all so much for watching, and I guess I will talk to you later. Take care.